Hello Zug, thank you for joining me on this longer interview.
Thank you.
Do you want to go deeper into DAOs and governance and why that interests you so much?
Yeah, sure. Well, I came into the Web3 like as a full-time contributor into the space through DAOs, because having a way where we govern those assets together, where we can coordinate, where we can like make an upgrade of what organizational ops or management can be done, just seemed like a valid step, like a evolution of politics. I mean, we do have a governance protocol that we all follow in the different countries, and it's just very slow. It's like we have the same thing for companies, and in most companies around the world, it's also very slow, very inefficient. So it just DAOs just feel like going from the horse to the car. We still don't know how to make the car. We still suck at making cars, but they clearly seem more efficient in the long term than the past models. So it interests me to work in governance and DAOs, so we can experiment more, find solutions. I don't think DAOs will be the solution for organizations, like for sure. I think that's just the best field for experimentation now, to find out how to coordinate, how to govern things with better tech, and it's a good area to try that. Like, if we can solve more coordination issues with higher efficiency, have a very big amount of things that we can improve with that. So yeah, it's a complex problem that improving in the area can have a lot of network effects. So that's kind of why it's interesting for me.
Okay. And but so like 6-7 years ago, I don't know how long have you been in DAO space, but I remember when DAOs were first getting started, everybody was like, yeah, DAOs, everything is going to be completely different, the organization is going to be completely flat, it's going to be nothing like the companies of the old world. So I want to ask you, like, now that like we had these years of experience, what do you think are now the key differences between DAOs and like Silicon Valley startups
The key difference,
or companies
I think,
in general?
yeah, I think there is an interesting part, like on the who gets to profit if it goes well. For me, that's quite interesting. Like, and that would for sure depend from DAO to DAO. But the idea of letting everybody play by the same rules, like if my consumer is paying fees on my platform and they're getting tokens back just like an investor is, or just like a contributor is, or just like a speculating trader is, like you're just bringing that governance into all the stakeholders in the scenario. Like, I don't think that we're there right now with DAOs. Like, I think we're somewhat on the way there with some DAOs. Like, I think this whole illusion of everything is gonna be different and we're gonna go whole flat hierarchies, like, comes from this type of comparison. Like, okay, we're gonna get DAOs to replace Silicon Valley companies. Like, it's not the only type of organization that has existed, right? Like, I think one big thing where I'm pretty much like not on board with that vision, or have not been, that like we're gonna change everything and DAO everything, and this is gonna be a obvious transition, they're gonna improve everything. Like, there's a lot of anthropology or sociology to look at first and learn from different methods of organization, different methods of decentralized, of horizontal organization, and the pros and cons of each of them. And I think DAOs just let us model that into a smart contract based scenario where we can interact without the trust having to be on a state that will make sure that the other part follows the agreement. No, it will be followed. Here's the rules, here's the actions you can do. As you do them, this is what happens, and that's how you interact. I think that is a big improvement, but it can be used to do like the new Silicon Valley, can be used to do the new co-op, it can be used to do the new state, like different parts of each of those things, multiple DAOs to replace each one of those. Like each of those things we're mentioning is not a single entity, right? It's a abstract entity that's like the hyperstructure filled of with other endo structures that can have multiple mechanisms working inside to get to the point of efficiency that they are today, right? Like if you look at Google and you try to model one DAO to rule them all, like Alphabet is way more complex than any DAO could just like manage at this point. I think the big change, despite any of that, is bringing the collective intelligence to the table. I think that voting is a way we're trying that. It's like, it kind of really sucks. We shouldn't be voting so much stuff. We shouldn't be voting everything. You're in a DAO, you can propose, can do anything with that money. Oh, this is a DAO? We might as well make any proposal. Like, what the fuck? Like, there's a bit of more focused vision that should be at some level specified in the contract that we lack. But there's where I think like the superpower lies, like gathering the collective intelligence. I think if you look at like, for example, Snapshot to Joke Race, Joke Race already has a little bit of a leap forward in gathering the collective intelligence. I think there's like a few different models getting more popular, from prediction markets to bribe-based systems on delegation to different types of delegation that we have on a different DAOs now, or like optimism with a dual level governance between citizens and token holders. There's like different experiments playing with how to move towards using that collective intelligence, like a matrix-based retro PGF like OP is doing now. Like it's another path to go towards that. But yeah, that would be the superpower, like collective intelligence being used, and we're still very bad at it. So the idea that we're gonna get over all the Silicon Valley startups the way we're doing it is like very far away, but just starting to play.
And do you think the DAOs in the near or like midterm future, I guess, or whatever, in the future, let's say, we'll be using stuff like Aragon, which is sort of allows you to put all these different pieces together, but they're all kind of built by the same organization and it's just one big platform? Or do you expect to be more like using Heads protocol for all management, using maybe Joke Race for like polling people, use sort of like these different pieces where like...
I think multiple pieces is more likely, but I think multi-meta is more interesting. Like I don't think it's necessarily gonna be now everyone uses their own stack with their own specialists gathering different tools. I think there are use cases for having like you just use Aragon. It does everything you need and everything runs. I don't see like any reason like or I don't see any single platform right now that can offer the best resources in every front. I think we lack the mortar. We're building the bricks, but we cannot put them together well to make a wall.
Right.
Right? Like
that's a great analogy, yeah.
We have like all those different bricks and they are great, but they're a pile. Like a pile of bricks is not gonna make it. But yeah, I think that is especially a good position in doing the product side right now with so many different tools. Just like if you're able to have a single wrapper where you can bring like governor, Joke Race, prediction market options, whatever else Aragon is offering that operates in a different way than the governor at these days, HATS protocol, like whatever it is, like reputation systems in it, allocation systems, juice box, like if you can bring the superpowers of different protocols into a single product and make the user like not even have to differentiate them, this is just features. This is like my organizational management dashboard and I'm just moving things. That'd be great, but I don't see any single provider taking that space right now.
Yeah, because you start building different pieces and you realize, okay, each of these pieces is actually more complicated than I thought it was, and like each of them has potential to become a whole DAO of its own, or like a whole project, and a lot of them are not even really very interoperable yet. But I hope we can get to a future where, like, you know, the flow charts that you are making for projects, where like you're mapping different stakeholders, how the value flows, how decision making works. Like if we had that kind of UI and actually connecting the pieces, like HEADS protocol with guild.xyz, how far do you think like in the future that kind of UI is? I know it's hard to tell, but
that's very hard to tell.
How far do you hope it is?
Oh, I want it tomorrow.
Yeah.
If I like, but I think that's more likely to come through specialized AI sooner than through proper human build. Like, just if I can just make a good like UML diagram of like all the things that need to happen at each step and the different protocols that need to connect, what communicates with what, and just feed it to an AI and get the front end that's running and calling the right contracts when someone clicks the right button. That's like the ideal, right? Like, as long as the protocols and the contracts on chain, because I don't want to be using an AI that will do will listen to my idea, rewrite the contracts, deploy them, and I will start using. Because then I'll have to audit, I'll have to go through. But if I already have the protocols, and all I need to do is put the calls in there, like, that's easier to read through quite fast. Yeah. I don't know when. I think it will be great. I think it will be very good to have like the mortar instead of more and more bricks. Right now what happens is, like, from that modeling, most of the time is not just a front end, right? That's the issue. Like, we're building interoperable stuff, but not that much, right? Things are interoperable at some level, but it's hard to go to the amount of signatures, to go to the amount of different ways to get the information you need. Like, right now, if you're trying to really integrate 4 or 5 different protocols in a single product, you'd better be running an indexer on your side to keep track of that data, because you don't want to be getting that every single time for most of the cases. There are exceptions, of course, that are very smooth, but for most of the cases, then you're looking at having a backend to be running that too, which is okay, right? Like, we're coming from a Web 2 where everything has a lot of backend. It's okay to have a backend if you need one, but ideally, right, if you can just deal with the contracts in the interface directly, you can make a dApp that's more actually a dApp, where it's just a way to access the on-chain contracts. Right now, having to build those little connections, those little interfaces, is still very much of an issue. So I think there's interoperability work to be done, and then the connection work to be done also. Like, both parties need to advance. Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. And when someone says a DAO, like, which part do you think is most critical to be decentralized? Is it like the ownership, the governance, or the actual infrastructure layer? What is the decentralized part?
Okay, there are many different points depending on what you're doing. I think that, like, for example, let's say we're fundraising from community to start a DAO. making an ICO, IPO, crowdfunding, whatever model like you go through, whatever it is that like gets money into the treasury to be run. Making sure that the control of where that money goes is like transparent in the first moment, right? Like, okay, this is how this money gonna be managed. You're putting money into this thing that's gonna be controlled this way, and here's how you have control over it because you're getting in. That's very important if you're doing like this type of broad capital raising. I think if you're looking into something that's more protocol focused, I think the control over anything on the protocol that can be reconfigured, especially towards a user base. Like, let's say I'm using a DeFi protocol and there's some variable that will really influence the returns over my use. Like, I think having control over that type of thing is important too. Like a DAO that builds a protocol, like, could be arguable that controlling the protocol is important part of the decentralization. So yeah, there's like control of the funds, control of the protocol itself. The infrastructure being decentralized most times won't be on the DAO directly, like unless we're looking at the protocol itself as the infrastructure, but like, is it running on Ethereum? Or is it running on Solana? Or is it running on whatever else it is? Like, that level of infrastructure being fairly decentralized, like to have transparency, resiliency, like all the bullet points of why blockchains and decentralization are beneficial, like it's ideal, but I'll not judge things for they're running on Base or something, or they're running on Solana or something. Like, it's a step above going to making your own L2 where all the nodes is me, and then you can run your own thing. Like, that'd be a worse scenario than putting it on not so decentralized infrastructure. But yeah, I think it really depends on where your risk model lies. To see what part is more important to decentralize in an organization depends on who are the stakeholders that are taking risk for the centralized parts. So look at who's involved, look at what risk they face, and each different part you centralize, understand who can be rugged, who can be silenced because of that being centralized, and yeah, measure how that can be negative or positive in that sense. But that's hard to tell. Like, it takes me many hours on top of a whiteboard to tell like what to pull. So it's very versatile.
Yeah, it's also very like use case or goal dependent. Like you can't know which part needs to be decentralized unless you know like what is the actual purpose, what are the attack vectors, and all of that. Like, really varies across different kinds of projects. But what was it that drove you to DAOs originally? Was it like were you like always interested in these sort of like new ways of organizing, or like anything that shaped you into the person that's really interested in that sort of thing? Or
yeah, I was in politics before, like a while before. I had left for a while already when I found DAOs, but I was like in student politics for a while, like anarchist, horizontal groups to left-wing political parties. Got disillusioned with the whole try to change it through elections and state and pressure things. But the part of like coordination, like bottom up, it's always been like something that I found interesting to see how it can do, how can it actually ripple effects through the network, instead of just like failing to Moloch over and over. And then when I found that, okay, I'm putting a lot of work here, spending a lot of time, discussion, studying, building stuff, and it goes nowhere, I tried to go to the, let's say, social entrepreneurship, like trying to think how to work through business towards social impact. And I was like, okay, I also can't really find the most interesting ways, like of being actually efficient and optimal with what I'm doing here. And then a friend of mine showed me this thing called a DAO. You know, I had a background. I graduated in design. I studied computer science before. I was into politics. Completely fucking nerd, like on Discord, on gaming servers, and I was like, okay, this is like digital communities of user experience on those like forums. I joined first as a community manager. The first DAO I joined was like a community manager.
What was the DAO?
Like, yeah, this is all.
No, what was the DAO?
Tile DAO.
Okay.
It was a generative NFT art.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess it doesn't really matter, but yeah, I just wanted to.
Yeah, Tile is a very interesting project. Actually, like all the money from those sales trickle down get back into like the treasury, and all the holders just see what we'll do with that. Like it just was a fun learning process. From there I went to Juicebox. From there I started Canoe DAO, and then like a bunch of other since but yeah, the main point was like, okay, this gets all the different areas I've worked with into a single thing, and it is very fresh for experimentation. I'm very frustrated with the capacity to actually do shit that matters in those areas that I've been, and like maybe this offers a new spin on that I might help drive forward. Still a baby that can be moved in better directions and changed and shaped through contribution. So that was mostly that. Yeah.
Cool. And what are some of the DAOs or DAO related tooling projects that you're currently either involved with or really like admire their work?
Oh, that I see happening right now that I find. I'm a big fan of Joke Race. I really like the contest idea, like just opening. It's just like one step more for community before you go vote, right? Like everyone still gets to vote, but before everyone still gets to give their opinion on what's the right answer. Oh, here's the RFP. Like just you have the request for proposal as a contest, and everyone replies as an option. Like it's interesting, and I think it's pretty versatile that what you can do on top. I'm pretty excited. Like it's biased to say Blockful, but it is what it is. Like we're right now a small team building on lots of different areas, and the one I'm hyped is like what we're working with governance security, with AI delegates, like looking to new spins on governance. It's exciting to think like the AI era of DAOs is coming. Like maybe our autonomous will be taken over by AI a little bit, and seeing how that's gonna happen is interesting. Who else is building very cool stuff? I think Lotto PGF, like building lotteries fully on chain to fund public goods. Very, very cool. Yeah, I mean, there's a huge list. I could go on, like Retro PGF doing metrics, Octant improving their rounds. This quite some.
Heads protocol. Can't forget the Heads protocol.
What?
Can't forget the Heads protocol.
No, yeah, Hats. Like it's, but Hats. I don't think there is anything. Hats became such a staple to me. Like, it's. I know it's kind of fresh and new at some level. It's slowly growing. But yeah, for sure Hats. I think what Kyle is building with Hats, of making it more integrated and more versatile, different tools, has been very, very good too. I mean, I could go the whole day.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, got any closing thoughts about your hopes for DAOs or your recommendations for people who are new to DAOs, or yeah, whatever comes to mind.
Recommendations for people who are new to DAOs, I don't really like. But yeah, there's one, go play. There's no wrong. No one knows what we're doing yet. Like, we have some ideas, we're experimenting some stuff, but if you don't have a solution to a problem you have in DAOs, try to find your own, try to make some new that is like deeply needed. And yeah, closing thoughts. It's been quite interesting being in Zuitzerland to see like a zoo focusing on governance and that debate. I think this evolution and next steps on how DAO tooling starts bridging into in real life worlds through this pop-ups should be very, very interesting. Like the connection down to real life is like quite soft still. It needs to improve. There's like now those city DAOs, like different cities that have their DAOs that are like starting to happen more, pop-up cities, network states. I think this will make a lot of good movements for us to bring this tooling to a stage where it's more feasible to implement. Thank you.